Well, thanks for chatting with me this morning.
Oh, no, thank you so much.
I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be good.
Yeah, I reckon.
So why not start at the start? Tell me, whereabouts did you grow up?
I grew up in a couple of different areas. My dad was in the Navy, and so we moved around a little bit, but mostly only New South Wales. So I mostly grew up on the south coast of New South Wales around Jervis Bay.
Oh, lovely place.
The locals call it Jervis Bay, but the Navy people call it Jervis Bay.
Got it.
So that was just almost like heaven on earth. It was such a great big wonderland for me as a kid. Just sort of like in growing up in the coastal bush. It was like just nurtured my imagination like nothing else. It was just incredible because parents were always busy. I mean, I grew up there in the 70s, so things were a lot different back then. You know, the parents just let the kids go off all day, and we'd just go and play in the bush down by the beach. No parental supervision. It was awesome.
Sounds great.
I grew up down there. Then you're
an only child, Pauline?
No, I've got a brother and a sister, both younger than me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You were the older sister.
Yeah.
Were you one of those bossy older sisters that got them to do everything for you?
No, I don't think so. They never could do it as well as me, to be honest.
Okay, so where to after that? Stay in Jervis Bay long?
Yeah, most of my life. Then I went to university, to Wollongong University, and studied nursing.
Why did you pick nursing?
I just really liked the idea of looking after people, helping people, giving back, I guess. Just always had that sort of humanitarian spirit, I think. And my first nursing job after graduating from university was at Royal Prince Alfred in Sydney, which is it's a huge hospital.
Yeah.
And what I saw as a country kid, it was incredible. It's like bang in the centre of Newtown in Sydney, which was a little bit wild and woolly when I was there.
Bit different to Jervis Bay.
Yeah, very different. It's not in Kansas anymore, Toto.
Exactly.
Sure. It's like, my goodness, I walked around like almost the whole year just with my mouth agape, like at everything that I was seeing. And I was actually there at the sort of at the height of the HIV epidemic.
What kind of year is that?
1990.
Yeah.
We're looking after really sad cases all cases of it were sad. There were just some in particular that will stay in my mind forever. You know, these people who really had just got it, quite accidentally as part of their treatment regime. And, yeah, it was heartbreaking to see.
Sure. And how long did you stay at the hospital for?
I stayed at Royal Prince Alfred for a year because I started to have stirrings about joining the military, and so I wanted to get some more trauma nursing training before I did that.
Okay. So what did that look like?
I worked in the local hospital in the emergency ward, or like casualty, and that was busy because we were right on the Princess Highway, lots of traffic, like accidents and. Because they're on country roads, kangaroos, wildlife and livestock on the roads, I certainly got my fair share of trauma nursing, that's for sure, at a local country hospital.
Can you give us an idea of maybe one incident where it was really eye-opening? Yeah,
there was a really, really sad situation. There was a guy who had just flown into Sydney at night. He hired a car and he came to grief. He didn't know the road. He was speeding and basically went and veered off the road. When we got him, he was a mess, and I'll never forget this because we had to put in a couple of chest tubes to, try to help him breathe. But as soon as the chest tubes went in, the casualty floor was just red. It was like a river of blood, and we just couldn't put enough blood back in him. And unfortunately, he passed away. But
how old was that guy?
I think he was in his late 50s.
Yeah, right. How do you go back to work the next day after dealing with something like that?
Well, you just have to. I mean, I think that's one of the things about being a nurse is we're quite resilient, and we have to bounce because we have to be there for the next patient that comes in. And even like after he was taken away and, taken to the morgue, we were cleaning up blood for hours, but we still had to run the ER so that any other patients that came in needed to be given the high standard of care that we were giving everyone else. So, you just can't drop your bundle. And I think that's given me in life a resilience to keep going. It's like, you get knocked down or something doesn't go the right way that you'd like.
Yeah.
You just have to brush yourself off and just keep going.
So the nursing background really put you in good stead for the next chapter in your life.
Yeah, it sure did. Yep, absolutely. I mean, I was in the military I got my goal. I did join the military. I joined the army. And
tell us going into that world would be like, your first day of school or like the first day of nursing was, I'm assuming. Tell us what that day was like for you.
My first day in the army was very interesting. You see, when nurses join the army, they don't go to officer school first. So what happens is you just go to one of the army bases, they give you all of your kit, don't tell you how to put it together or anything, and then they say, okay, so head down the Hume Highway and you'll get to your posting in about, the train takes 6 hours, so yeah, you should be there in 6 hours.
Wow. So, tell us, what was the big difference between a nurse for the general public versus being a nurse in the army?
Yeah, there is a very big difference because when you're a nurse in the army, you are a soldier first, and then you're a nurse. So you've got your core competencies. You have to obviously be fit. So we'd have our basic fitness each year, not each year, a couple of times in the year, and you'd always have to pass that. Also, you've got to be able to fire a weapon, and it's in your own best interest to fire that weapon accurately. So, funny thing was my dad was a marksman in the Navy, and he was actually in the Vietnam War. And so when I went, oh, all right, I've never touched a weapon before. And they said, look, just put the blunt bit to your shoulder and the pointy bit towards the target. And,
you'll be all right.
Yeah, he said, if you can hit the target, that'll be a bonus.
Yeah.
I went, all right, I'll have a crack. Yeah.
Pauline, at what point in your life in the army did you start to have negative thoughts?
Yeah, I think being in the military is like any other job. You have your highs and your lows. What happened with me, I actually ended up with major depression, but that was at the end of my career, naturally, because then I left. But so what brought that about was because I was a nurse and also a trauma nurse and highly specialised. What they did, they sent me to East Timor in 2003, and I went over there, and it was a fairly normal deployment, except I had a boss that was a bully, and she was bored. And when you're in operations, there's not a lot of stimulation, so she decided just to make our life very difficult. And when I came back home, they said to me, Pauline, just to let you know, you're on standby to go to Iraq. And
wow.
I said, and when would this happen? They said, probably in the next month or two. So just get yourself ready. And I just looked at them and I said, I can't do this. And they said, you can't refuse. I said, no, but I can tell you that I'm depressed and I'm not very well. They said, but you're one of our only healthy nurses. I said, I just said to you that I've got depression. I wouldn't consider that's healthy. And so that it started the slippery slope out of the military because of that day. I was put on antidepressants and treated for depression. And the funny thing about it, like spiritually, the more I tried to fight to stay in there, the worse everything became. But as soon as I started to ease back my fight to stay in the military, things started to change for the better for me personally.
Yeah, got it.
But I still went through with the discharge just to get out of that volatile situation.
I see. Pauline, how old were you when you first had those, but when they first said, we want you to go to Iraq?
Yeah, I think I was about maybe 34. So pretty much at the prime of my life, I'd say, as a nurse and everything. I was very experienced, knew exactly what I was doing. So, and actually I'd just been promoted to major, which was one of the ranks that I'd been, very excited to be working towards. And so no sooner had I become a major, this is the irony, I became a major and then I was diagnosed with major depression, which wasn't funny at the time, but it's hilarious now. And, it's like, can I have a captain's dose of depression? I think I could handle that better.
Just not a major one.
Yeah, not just a major one. It's a bit too hardcore for me.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Okay, so how did you do your daily duties knowing that you had this depression hanging over you?
Yeah, it was hard. Every day that I drove to work, I would be in tears. But as soon as I hit the front gate of the army barracks, the tears would stop and I'd just get on with my job. It's one of those situations where you just wear a mask and it's like being incredibly stoic. The reason for that wasn't for myself, though. It was for my diggers and the soldiers and the officers that I was looking after. I mean, being a major, I was the officer commanding of a whole medical company. So there was about 120 people that I was looking after. So their welfare and their lives were in my hands. So I couldn't go to work and be, a blubbering mess. I had to be strong and I had to be there for them because that's just the way it works.
That's
when
right.
You're an officer.
And just like you mentioned with the nursing background, is you just had to clean up one and move on to the next, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Did you end up going to Iraq?
No, I didn't. I ended up getting out before that.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, that was just after a while of being on the antidepressants, my body rejected them and my doctors were giving me way too much. I think in some ways they might have been experimenting on some drug sort of combinations.
You were the guinea pig.
Yeah, I think so. When they say it's tested on, not tested on animals, but it's tested on humans, like probably army people, because you can't say no. That's the thing in the military. You can't refuse treatment, otherwise you get kicked out, and that's the fear that they put on you, is that you have to take these tablets and you can't say no. So I was heavily medicated, and I was like really loopy on the drugs, but something within me just said, get off the drugs, you need to face what this is. The drugs are just numbing you and putting off the inevitable. But one day, Pauline, you're going to have to face this. It was almost like I had this wise woman inside me somewhere just saying,
trying to get out.
Will you seriously just So the thing was that they wouldn't let me get off the drugs. And then they changed the drugs I was on. And the next thing, I had a horrible reaction, ended up in hospital. But the blessing was that was the last time an antidepressant ever went into my mouth. Because
when you say you had a terrible reaction, what happened?
They overdosed me, let's just say. And I was hearing sound through my skin. I could count how many times a fluorescent light flickered in a minute. Like it was just, for me being a nurse, it was just like me taking a pulse.
So you turned into Spider-Man, basically.
Oh,
You had special powers.
I had little superpowers, but can I tell you, they were very frightening because, I mean, I was already compromised mentally and psychologically, but you're not supposed to have those things, and they're hard enough to deal with, I think, with a stable mind, but I just thought it was going quite mental, and I was actually very fearful that if I told too many people about it, that I'd be locked up into a mental ward, which was happening to some of the people around me in the army, and also one of the things that I know that was on the cards for me was ECT or electroconvulsive therapy.
Wow. And
that frightened the hell out of me, and that's when I started to go, okay, I'm out of here. You are not frying my brain. I need it. I'm out of here. So that's
do you think, Pauline, that what you went through and what you experienced was a unique case?
Look, I don't actually think so. Sadly, the army really does burn people out, and we've seen that in modern times. A lot of the soldiers are coming back from deployments overseas, with mental health issues. And I think it's not that we aren't the right people to go. I think it's what happens when we're over there. And I know that if I was able just to do my job and not have a boss that was bored and a bully, I would have been fantastic. But that just wasn't the case.
Did anything come of your boss who bullied you? Did anything come of that?
Yeah, there was an investigation. It was really huge, and it was really hard to go through that when I was on medication and depressed. But I had to go and give some evidence to what had happened in East Timor, and also the year before. She was my boss then, and she was disciplined, but then she was actually then later promoted to Lieutenant Colonel and sent down to Canberra. So wow. I don't think she was really all that punished. So it's funny, I was depressed and I wanted to die, but I didn't want the army to do it. So I don't know, there was something happening.
I bet. So you wanted to die. Tell me about that. I know that, you got pretty dark. Like, how dark did it get?
Oh, every morning I would wake up and I would just swear at God or whoever was running the show. And I'd just be terribly upset that I even woke up, because, like, before I went to sleep of a night time, I said, please kill me, please take me tonight, just put me out of my misery. And then in the morning I'd wake up and I'd just say, how dare you? And like, I don't want to be here. But then the thing was, I didn't want to kill myself. It's sort of, I heard an interview with Carrie Fisher last year, and she sort of summed it up for me and made me feel a lot better about things. She said, I don't want to kill myself, but if I died and was put out of my misery, I would be so happy. Like, it would be such a relief. And those words resonated with me, because that is exactly what I felt every day that I had depression. Yeah.
Sure. Did you ever take an attempt on your life?
There was one day that was a brutal day. That was the day I was discharged from the army. Basically, I was told that I would never nurse again, that I'd have depression for the rest of my life. So I had picked out a tree that I was going to drive my car into on the way home. I wasn't going to get home, in fact. And so I started to execute my plan of driving towards the tree.
You were actually in the car driving?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. On the way home, driving towards the tree fairly quickly. And then all of a sudden this voice screamed in my head and said,
That
stop.
wise woman again?
That wise woman, she saved my life. But you know what she said to me? She said to me, Pauline, for God's sake, stop. You're a nurse. You know what's going to happen. You've stuffed up everything up until now. What makes you think you're going to kill yourself and do it? And then the old nurse kicked in and she said, yes, you're going to be a vegetable and people are going to be wiping your butt for the rest of your life.
You can't even kill yourself properly.
Yeah, that's it. And so you're going to have to live with the consequences of this decision for the rest of your life.
Yeah. How
How about that? And then I just went, all right.
Wow.
Stopped the car, sat there, caught my breath, and I drive past that tree every now and then, and I just sort of give it a bit of a head nod and go, you know what, we've done all right in life since that day,
You were able to turn past that chapter. That's impressive.
Yeah.
So was that a moment of clarity for you?
Yeah, it was. It was a defining moment, because in that moment it's like, okay, so if you're not going to kill yourself, what in the hell are you going to do? Like, you can't sit on the lounge for the rest of your life. You're not going to turn to alcohol, because, like, my dad was an alcoholic, and a lot of there's a lot of alcohol in the military. I don't smoke, so I thought it's going to be really boring just sitting on the lounge for the rest of my life. So what do I do? And then I got home, curled up in the fetal position, and just cried my eyes out for a day.
Pauline, I just want to go back a step and talk about other people that may have experienced or are experiencing depression or PTSD from, the Defence Force or even, other forces, the police or AMBOs, fireys, you name it, right?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to those people that are going through that?
Well, there's a few things. I think what I did, I know what I did that made the difference was that you might have noticed that I don't call it my depression. I don't call it my medication. I started to become very much aware that the way you say things about yourself, you own them. So, like people would say, oh, I'm depressed. And I say, I have depression. Or I would say that I was feeling sad, but I wouldn't say that I was depressed. Because since going down the spiritual path, I know that when you say I am, you own whatever you say after it.
I see.
So I never said that I am depressed or I am whatever. It's like, or say anything you say is mine, you own as well. So I would say, yeah, I'm taking the medications or I'm doing the treatment. I'm going to see the psychiatrist who's never mine.
So you distance yourself from it.
I did distance it. The other thing with depression is people tend to like to put cute names on it, like, the black dog. Well, I don't agree with that because there is nothing cute or fluffy about depression. So I thought, why would I call depression the black dog when I love animals and I'm not going to do anything mean to animals? So, I don't hear people say, I'm going to kill the black dog of depression. It's like, but that's what you want to do. You want to distance yourself and get rid of it. You want to starve it.
Yeah.
But if you're actually calling it a dog, and if you like animals or you're
black dogs are lovely things.
Exactly. So, why would you be cruel to it? Yeah. So it's almost like a way of, it's like that puppy dog. It's like, oh, well, I'm not going to get rid of it because, So, yeah, I just started to disown it and just started to deny it access. And, there's that inner voice that is what depression and PTSD will come up with. And, PTSD is brutal because you just get these, it's almost like when you're on your computer screen, these pop-ups come up or, an ad opens and it's like you've got no control over it. So don't try to have any control over it. But once it's happened, that's when you can kick in. That's your trigger to say, okay, thanks for sharing. Now, F off, thank you. You're not invited. You're unwelcome here. And that's what I did. Every time I had something pop up or a thought that I would dwell in, it's just like, I have this theory of bouncing. It's like, I don't have to bottom out when I hit rock bottom, and I hit rock bottom several times. And, even now, every now and then I'll still go, I'll sink down, but I see that I bounce and I bounce back up. I don't have to sit down at rock bottom. So
exactly. Yeah, we need to be a bit nicer to ourselves, don't we?
Yeah, and it's hard though. It's really hard when you haven't got any self-worth. In the military, we've lost more soldiers to suicide than we have in modern warfare.
Wow.
And so people talk about...
Is that true? More people have taken their own lives than their enemies have?
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
Especially for Afghan... since, probably about... I would say modern warfare being from East Timor through to now. Yeah, we've lost over, I think it was 200 or maybe even 300 now. I think it was about 40 have killed themselves so far this year. Yeah, which is horrible. For the case... as an officer, when I had my soldiers overseas, I looked after them and I kept them safe so that they could return home to their families. But when they get out of the military with depression or mental, health issues, and then they're left to their own devices and they're looked after by, the government agencies, and then they're let down and then they take their lives. Because I've actually had a few of my ex-soldiers kill themselves in recent years, and every time I see the news, I see their faces, it just breaks my heart.
Pauline, you've actually written a book about this, haven't you?
I have actually. The funny thing was when I had depression and my psychiatrist and psychologist were looking after me in the military, they kept giving me great big books to read with small text and that. And as I said, I couldn't read or write. And if I did have to write anything, I'd be writing in pencil because I didn't think I was worthy of ink. So the doctors and that would give me these great big reams of paper to read, or these great big psychology books. And so anyway, what happened was I started to draw a little stick figure, and she would represent me. And sometimes I didn't even want to talk to people like the psychologist. So I'd actually draw little pictures. She goes, "How do you feel today?" So I draw a little picture of this girl. She goes, "Holy shit, that's like really interesting. That's so expressive."
Yeah. So
when I say I wrote a book, I actually more illustrated a book on depression. It's called From Depression's Darkness. And, it's just basically a illustrated book of my journey. There is some writing in there because when I started to write it, I was starting to be a copywriter, and I love writing now, actually. It's funny. I get paid really well to be a writer. I was
going to say, it's your career that you're quite successful at.
I love it.
So... But is it targeted to Defence Force? Is it targeted to people with depression?
Just people with depression and people who are looking after people with depression. It seems to have a dual sort of like readership. The people in depression can actually just like open it up to a page and say, "That's how I feel today." And for the people who actually are looking after a loved one with depression, when the person points to that picture, they actually look at it and say, "Okay, I finally get it." Like there's one page on there, my dad's got PTSD from Vietnam. He has been suffering in silence for years, and he opened up my book and he went, "Wow, Pauline, that is exactly how I feel every day." Yeah. He showed my mum, and my mum said, "Why couldn't you tell me that?" And he said, "I just never had the words until now."
Didn't know how to.
But I think, when people try to put their own thoughts into it, is like, you've got so much to live for, like for me, like, hey, you've got like this really great career, you've got a great family, you've got a great partner, you've got everything going for you. But in that moment of when people want to commit suicide, they are only trying to get away from one person, and that is themselves, because it doesn't matter if everyone else loves them and everyone else thinks that they're great. Their self-worth is like at -1 million in that moment, and they are the person that they're trying to get away from. Because I know this, because when I was depressed, every time I just wanted to run away, Matt. I said to my partner, "I want to get on the tilt train, go up to Cairns and just sit on the beach."
And leave me behind.
Yeah, and well, I didn't say that because I didn't have that sort of insight. I just want to go up there, pick up a pebble on the beach and come back home. And they said, "Well, why? Why can't?
Why can't you do it?"
It's just a long trip. I couldn't do it because I would be AWOL. But and then there was another couple of places I wanted to run away to. But the thing was that I didn't run away and I wouldn't be running away because I was traveling with the idiot in my head that I was trying to get away from. So
that's right.
And that's I believe, and this is my opinion only, I believe people are trying to just get away from themselves because they are not enough and they have let themselves down and they don't see how they can possibly recover from that.
Pauline, if someone listening to this is going through some of the dark stages that you went through, what would be your simplest bit of advice for them?
If they are feeling really down, like they do want to end it all, I don't think it happens all of a sudden that you just wake up and go, "That's it, I'm going to kill myself, I'm going to end it all." There's a slippery slope that starts to happen. So I'd say to them to be very aware of, get in touch with yourself and really start to know the cycles of the condition that you have. Start to see the warning signs. If you need to get help, ask for help. There is always help around. Even if you live alone, there's like so many agencies. But just to know that you are worth it. And I sort of alluded to before that you're trying to get away from yourself. Well, the thing is that just in that moment, you may think that you're your own worst enemy, but also just remember in life that you are your own best friend too. You are the most amazing thing on the planet, and just remember that you're worth it and that you're here for a reason. And it's not to come onto this planet and just end your own life. It's to actually go out and, live your purpose. And if you don't know what that purpose is, well, maybe you're a little bit short from living your purpose. So if you end it now, you'll never get to find out what, is your purpose or what you're here for. So just see life as the adventure that it is. And sometimes, you lose your pack down a big ravine, well, leave your pack and keep moving, There's better things ahead for you.
Exactly. Pauline, such a great chat. I want to say thanks for your time, but also thanks for being so honest and offering such a great insight to an amazing life.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Thank you for the opportunity. As I said, I'm very happy to help people and, just let them know that there's more to life than the darkness, The darkness can only be there because of the light, and the light can only be there because of the darkness. So, just learn to control them, have more light than dark. Well said. Thanks again, Pauline. Have a great day. All right, you take care, Matt. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.